Alright guys, and welcome to the next video in my series of previewing every single team in NA Challengers. This video is going to be about Oxygen. They're a newly formed team from like December. They're made up a bunch of like tier 2 players, even some players who I wouldn't even have considered tier 2 before this. And Mitch, brought in from C9. They qualified through the lower bracket in the first open qualifier. Obviously, most of their run was through the upper bracket, only losing at the end of it to Disguise and then just beating Silk Road in the final game. But yeah, let's get right into this team. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. And let's get back into the video. And yeah, onto their map pool. We're gonna start. I'm gonna start with the Ascent here, which is a very interesting map for them. Obviously, losing it twice to Disguised and 99 strength. I think this comp really helps like on attack, where you can kind of like 5-hit sites more. You don't really have to split as you do maybe without the breach or without the Astra. I mean, I don't think the Astra really helped them too much, but I think it's definitely better than the Omen for just 5-hitting. Uh, their defensive site holds weren't great, um, but the retakes on defense were really nice. I think this comp was like really fun to watch, but I don't know how well this will do when teams like can prepare more for it in a multi-week group stage. So I'd expect them to change their comp and the way they play this map. But overall, I did think it was pretty good, and it showed that they can like have new and good ideas. Um, and then Pearl, uh, I thought their Pearl was okay. I really don't like their comp. I think the lack of a duelist and then also the Sage, I think you can do one or the other. You kind of have to go double initiator at worst to run no duelist, but I don't know. The Sage just didn't help them at all. Like they had better attacking round win rates generally, and they kind of just got exposed by Steel's lurks and whatnot. Even though they had some nice like Killjoy setups and stuff. I don't know. And that was like the only other map I got to watch because Knights just deletes their VODs for whatever reason. But they ran Yoru on Breeze, which was interesting. Actually, no, I did. I would have had the chance to watch this, but I didn't because I don't care about watching Breeze at this point. Haven, obviously, I didn't get to watch. The comp, it looks decent. I mean, I personally don't like Sky on this map. I think Sova would be better. But if they're winning this many rounds on defense, it has to be okay. Also, another kind of note, the Ascend comp seems to be back on Bind. A lot of people are running that, which I think is interesting, even though Bind is kind of right at the end of its life. Icebox, I do really like their Icebox comp. I think this will probably end up being the meta. It's essentially Dark Ratios comp, but with a Sage uh, instead of the Raze, and it, I don't know. I don't think it allowed them to win as many attack rounds based on stats, but it might look a little bit better. And then obviously they didn't play Fracture at all, so we'll see. I think this team has a pretty decent map pool. They'll be able to play Breeze and Bind early, and they seem to have some cool new ideas, so maybe they will be able to play Lotus once it comes out. But we'll just have to see. And yeah, now onto the players. And we're gonna start with Mitch, who is the IGL for this team. And very surprisingly to me, was not playing Sentinel. I wasn't too familiar with Randy Savage before this, so if I knew that he played Sentinel, I probably would have thought Mitch would probably be playing like the Initiator, like he was playing on Cloud9, which his Initiator play was fairly good, but I think he'd probably be something close to like a top 10 player in all of Challengers if they had put him on that Sentinel role, but obviously he's not, so shouldn't talk about it too much, but yeah, as I said, I was impressed with his initiator play. Obviously, he was playing the breach on Ascent, as I talked about before, which looked really good. His IGLing looked pretty good. I thought it was about average. I don't think it was anything exciting. It wasn't like, oh my god, this isn't good. But it was good IGL and NA needs more of this. Um, he kind of got stashed on Cloud9 there for a while because he was kind of just their fourth, fifth best player for a long time. But I think he can kind of maybe break out again, and we'll just have to see. Now into Verno, who's more the scan initiator, like the Sova and the Fade. I was so impressed with the Sova, especially in Ascent, where he was getting a lot of value out of the rifle, which you don't tend to see as much. Obviously, a lot of people are using the Odin these days, and used to be using the Odin. But he was getting a lot of value out of his like recons, like consistently getting scans and whatnot. But the thing I was specifically impressed with was his shock darts, where, I mean, just for an example, there was a round where he had two shock darts land at two different spots at the exact same time during a retake, which I don't really see that much. Like, I think one was front gen and the other one was front dice. And I don't know, I think just being that prepared is really nice. Obviously, that probably has some to do with like the coaching and like other players in the team. But also, I was just impressed. Other than that, like just with his general util usage on the Sova, I don't know. I think he's one of the better Sovas and challengers right now, and I just hope he continues to get better because then I'll look smart for being high on him. As I said earlier, on to the Sentinel player, and Randy Savage, who he had a few nice clutches in that game against Silk Road. He's a decent Sentinel player. Mitch would be better on this role, but I don't know if Randy Savage is any good on Initiator or even if he's played any Initiator. Okay, he's played Sova, and that's it in the past, so I'm not necessarily inclined to believe that he would be any better than Mitch on the flex role, so whatever. But I don't know. I'm not worried about him at all. I don't think he'll be bad, but he just doesn't excite me at all. Now into a player who I was very interested in watching, Pony, who was playing smokes when he was playing on T1. Yeah, great move T1. Sick roster. I mean, he seems like a great duelist player. I understand why they picked him up in the first place, but I don't get why they put him on smokes. I feel like that's just stupid. Uh, now on, I mean, the actual player. He did seem a lot more comfortable on the Jet than the Rays. He also played Sage on Pearl, which I didn't think looked terrible, but I don't think that Agent should have been played in the comp that they were playing. So I think he'll be playing Jet in the future on that map. I don't know. His opping looked good. Not a ton to say. He didn't look crazy, but a lot better than he did on Smokes. And finally, we have Scuba, who I have rated as a top 3 Smokes player in all challengers. I mean, he can play every controller, which isn't necessarily a given at this level. I mean, I know there's some players that don't play Astra. There's some that don't play Brim. It's not like a crazy big deal, but just kind of a good note. I mean, he clearly can frag. He doesn't overextend a ton either, which I don't think a lot of any controllers do at this point, but it's also a good thing to note. He really feels like a lesser version of Mako for DRX. It's like obviously he's not as good as Mako, but it's kind of a comparison to playstyle. But yeah, I mean, he rounds out a roster that has extremely high player quality and can go toe to toe with pretty much, I mean, most of the rosters, maybe outside of like M80 and the guard, in terms of just skill. And that makes him very dangerous. And yeah, overall, I was fairly impressed with this team. I expected a little bit worse. I didn't think they were going to be like blowing me away or anything, and they weren't. I mean, this team has like 4 really good players. I don't know, like if their team play or ideas will get them too far, but I think they're probably the third best open qualifier team that I've watched. Um, I mean, they're bringing cool ideas to the table. They have great players. Um, but yeah, I think they have extremely high upside, but they could also kind of fall flat on their face. And as I've said a few times in this video, just have to wait and see.